Hello, everyone. Welcome to preschool, early childhood. It's ages 3 to 5. It is such a fun age. Um, the next part of the part three includes middle childhood. So you're going to go through um, early childhood, which is technically preschool, and then the next chapter talks about middle childhood, which is the elementary school years. And preschool is probably, for me, one of the funnest ages. And this week, you're going to be doing some hands-on activities that I think will be a lot more interesting than having to, do some other assignments. So I hope you enjoy this week. Okay, so Erik Erikson talks about early childhood being the area of initiative versus guilt. And what this means is this is during the time where a child is going to take a lot of initiative to try things. And as parents, we have the opportunity to either facilitate that initiative or shut them down. For example, I can remember specifically my preschool daughter wanting to buckle her own seatbelt when she got into her car seat. And she would become very, very mad if I just plopped her in there and put the car seat belt on her. So I knew that I needed to take a little more time and not be rushed wherever I was going to allow her to take the initiative to try to put the seatbelt on herself. And lo and behold, after a few tries, she could figure out how to put it on. Once she figured out how to put this on, she had this tremendous amount of pride. And that really started to build up her self esteem. Every time that I would try and or allow her to facilitate her trying new things, that's the initiative piece that Erikson is talking about. And it's key for self esteem. So you want to make sure that you don't tell the preschool child that they can't do anything. You might allow them to try it, and then you might allow them to try it with your help. May I help you pour the milk into your glass? Because I fear that it might come out too fast. Can I help you? And you allow them to try things with your guidance, and that is huge for their self-esteem. The moment that you tell them that they can't do it, that's when they start to bring on this guilty feeling of not being good enough. So you want to be really conscious of this time and allowing them to really take initiative on things. Which pair of shoes do you want to wear today? The white ones or the blue ones? Um, what would you like to drink with dinner? Would you like orange juice or milk? So you give options and you want them, again, to take initiative and try things on their own and give them some independence. And the other thing, too, is the initiative piece. They'll go and try things all on their own, which is obviously taking initiative. But you want to watch and see where they're going with something that they're trying new. It could be exploring in the backyard. Let them, but watch them to make sure that whatever they're trying to initiate is something that they can safely try and do on their own. And then we'll get into the middle childhood next chapter. Okay, so physical development in the preschool age. Um, these kids, this age, they want to play so much. So you've got the gross motor skills, which is your large muscle areas like your legs, where you're running and you're jumping. Then you have the fine motor skills, where it's the using a crayon. It's more of your hands. And you might be playing with clay or something that they're doing with their fingers, painting and things of that nature. So you want to give them lots of opportunities to do this. One of the things that can hinder development is when there is a lack of outdoor play. And we see that a lot nowadays because it's easier for parents just to, give the child the iPad and let them watch something on the iPad. And it's sad because our kids at this age, especially, need to have that time outside. So encourage that as much as you possibly can. The other thing is the lack of food or being undernourished that can hinder physical development. We've got to make sure you're hitting those 5 food groups with a developing child. Because if not, if they're only eating candy, if they're only eating chips, drinking soda, whatever it might be, you could have stunting of growth. It does impair their brain development, so the fine and gross motor skills can be impaired. And then they have like this fatigue because you know that those foods don't give you the proper energy that you need to constantly be moving. So you want to make sure that they're getting really good nutrition during this time. And this actually, in toddlerhood, you want to give them lots of opportunities to try new foods. Like this is where you want to get them used to vegetables. And fruits and have them try different things because when they go into preschool age, if you haven't done that, they get really picky and it can become very frustrating. So always be introducing new foods. Now, Piaget talks about the pre-operational thinking during this time, the preschool years, and they have this during preschool years, they can only see what they see. Like they cannot think beyond what they're looking at. And when they are, it could be something on a table. If it's a glass of water on the table, they only see the glass of water on the table. They don't see everything else necessarily that's on the table if they're focused on that piece. And it's kind of interesting. They can't think beyond the imaginative thinking. That probably wasn't that didn't come out right because they have huge fantasy minds during this time, but they can't see that the glass is if you have 2 glasses of water next to each other. And they might have the same amount of water in them, but the glass are different shapes. So they see as one being a less amount versus the other. And this actually feeds into one of your activities you're going to do this week, a conservation task activity that I'm excited that hopefully you can get done. So you're going to hopefully you can have access to a preschooler age 3 to 5 where you can do this activity where if you have a cookie and then you have a whole cookie in one hand and then in your other hand you have the same cookie but broken in half, the preschooler will always most likely take the cookie that's cut in half because they feel like they're getting more. So they have this, and they don't have the understanding of volume and mass that it's the same thing, but it looks differently. So it's kind of interesting. So I hope you enjoy the conservation activity that I have in Canvas for you. Because what I'm going to have you do is these items that are on the screen right now, this is out of page 141 in your textbook. If you can get these items and then talk to a preschooler and do the activity on here, it'll be interesting to see what their answers are. And if you have a 3-year-old versus a 5-year-old, their answers will actually might be different because they might be going through that developmental stage that they're starting to get to the operational stage of Piaget. So if you have these items, I'd like you to take the pennies, ask the child, are these 2 rows the same? Take the same amount of pennies and rearrange them to so one line looks shorter than the other, and ask them the same question. But don't have them watch you rearrange them. Um, and see what they say. And if you happen to have some clay or dough or something that you can do with this activity, that'd be awesome. And then here's the glasses I was talking about. Same amount of water, but one glass is shorter than the other. And then if you have a sugar cube and it dissolves in water, they think that the sugar cube has just totally disappeared. So be interesting. Anywho. So basically, why they can't answer those questions is because they can't understand reversibility. So they can't understand that an object can be reshaped into a different shape and then put back into the shape that it originally was. Like the ball of dough, it's a ball. Then I smash it to maybe make a tortilla, and so they don't think that it's the same amount of dough, because they don't have that reversibility. They don't realize that I can put that dough and put it back into a ball and it still be the same thing. Now, Vygotsky is I love this guy because I'm in education, obviously, and so I really like his theory on proximal development. And basically what that means is that a child has the ability to learn a concept. And so within that concept that the child is learning, they have this ability to learn a little bit more beyond what that concept is. So if a child is at a science center in the classroom and learning about, let's take that sugar cube and put it in water, the child's interest in learning that concept it's the teacher and the facilitator has the ability to stretch that child's learning about the concept of something dissolving. And when a child can't necessarily understand a concept, we use the term like scaffolding, which is a way to facilitate a child's learning by giving them little bits of information so that they can come to the conclusion or the answer all on their own. So think of a scaffold on the side of a building, and the construction person has to get to the second floor on the outside of the building to get to where they need to work. They build this scaffold. They go up about 5 feet. They put what do you call it? A beam across or whatever, and then the scaffold goes about 5 feet further up in the air, along with another beam that they can walk across. So they slowly go up, and that's how a teacher or a parent should facilitate a child's learning during this time, is scaffolding, giving them little bits of information so that they can grasp onto the concept all on their own. And Vygotsky says that this zone that the child's living in, that they're learning in, is something that they can attain a little bit more information, a little bit more rigorous information, but it takes time and scaffolding. I don't know if I did a very good job explaining that, but we'll talk more about it later. Vygotsky's scaffolding is a huge intervention strategy that we use in the classroom, and we have to make sure that we know where the child's learning capabilities are, And if they are having a harder time understanding a concept in math or science or whatever it might be, that the teacher uses scaffolding as an intervention. They definitely need to be able to master a concept before they move on to the next concept, because that's where you get a lot of frustrations in kids. So you don't want to push too hard in a child's learning, because you need to really be in tune with what they understand before you give them another concept or a harder, more rigorous concept before learning the basics. It's like learning multiplication. You can't learn multiplication until you learn how to add. Well, you can't learn how to add unless you know one-to-one concepts. Like this, you have 1 penny is 1. You add another penny, there's 2. You can't do that, or you can't move on to multiplication until you understand that concept. Um, the other section of the book talks about the emotional development of the preschooler, and constructing a personal past and having autobiographical memories is huge in preschool age. So you'll see that as a parent or even a caregiver, you'll talk about, when you talk about the past conversations of things that have happened, like I heard it was your birthday last week and I saw that a clown came to your party. Boom, that child, it has that memory and starts having this conversation. And it's preschool age kids talk constantly about their memories that they have. You can have a preschool center on the rug, and the teacher's trying to read a little book to the group of kids, and then you'll have a preschooler raise their hand and say, totally interrupt and say, "Oh yes, my mommy has a blue car because there was a blue car in the book," and they'll talk about, and they'll just keep going. "I like to ride in my mommy's blue car because da 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 da." So these autobiographical memories are very important to preschool age kids, and you want to foster that conversation, and because it really brings context to their life, and they're speaking, they're talking, they're having these conversations where they're learning about language. Another really cute stage in social development in preschoolers is their friends. They love their friends, and they have best friends, and they get very hurt when someone doesn't want to play with them. And play is crucial for a preschooler. And one of your activities this week is that you have to create a preschool plan. And so make sure that you have a dramatic play area and an outside play area, because they need time to run and chase each other. They need to play, chef, kitchen, restaurant together. And interestingly enough, there's a lot of rough and tumble play. And so we have to really kind of, encourage play, but we do it in a way that's not going to hurt anybody. But you definitely have boys that are a little more rough and tumble than girls. Girls like to just be more in an intimate, small group of girls together, playing quietly, whereas boys, they want 10 people on the field to play soccer or whatever it might be, and they're bumping into each other, and they're wrestling and that type of thing. It's just definitely a biological difference between boys and girls. But we also have the social part of it, the culture, social culture, that we expect girls to be, quiet and playing soft, quietly with their friends. But again, that's something that we as a culture assume but it definitely doesn't define boys and girls either. So that pretending or fantasy play, very important because it helps them to pretend to be other people, like they're practicing. They could be practicing careers, like if they are pretending to be a chef in a kitchen, or if they're pretending to be mom in the play area. This is huge. We want this because this is very important for their social development. And when they're playing with other kids, they're just kind of practicing roles. So it's a huge important piece in social development at preschoolers. That dramatic play area is huge. So it also, when they practice pretending, it allows them to have the role of the adult, but it gives them kind of a sense of control too. And you will have some times in dramatic play areas where you get two strong-willed children that want to be in control of the role playing, and that's where the teacher or the parent comes in to kind of facilitate and teach them how to use their words to explain what they want, and they learn from us. And so I talked about the difference between boys and girls play worlds. And it is biology, but at the same time, we do have some socialization, gender roles that we, as a culture, express upon our children as well. Lastly, autism. As an educator, I see autism quite frequently in the educational system, and it is very controversial. A person with autism or who's on the spectrum kind of has a lack of interest in people and their feelings. They have repetitive, restrictive behaviors, ritualized behaviors, and they're very, very sensitive to sensory input. People who touch them, or clothes that might be too rough on their bodies. And then they have some fixations as well. So even though there might be a little bit of impairment in their mind, you have a very broad range of autism where you could have very high functioning autistic children who do just fine in their education, but it's the social and emotional development that's hindering them. So here is a controversial topic. Do vaccinations cause autism spectrum disorders? I'm actually going to give you some extra credit. Those of you that actually went through this whole presentation and listened to me, if you answer this, do a little research and give me your opinion, and then you can email it to me. I will give you some extra credit for your response. All right, well, I hope you have a great week. Take care.